welcome to Double Feature.
Steve, it is so great to be with you today. Thanks for this opportunity.
So, this show is already a big hit across the country. How does that feel? Have you been getting fan mail? What's it been like?
Yeah, well, I get fan mail every day, and interestingly enough, Steve, it's from all over the world. We get fan mail from India, from Pakistan, from Russia, from China, from Great Britain, from everywhere, not in this country, but all over the world. And there's always one common thread through all of the communication that we receive, and it's compassion, understanding, and dignity, and fairness. One of those words is in almost every piece of correspondence that we get. It appears that in the world, not only in this country, that those basic qualities in human intercourse are lacking. And it's just doing what your parents taught you to do. It's just doing the honest and decent thing. And that's what we try to do.
Well, you know, it's funny you say that because I think that is also a part of leadership. You were blessed to have parents who instilled certain values. I feel that my family taught us certain values, but not every child in today's modern society is given those tools. But by your leadership, you are setting an example. I tell people, no matter what problems you may have in your life, when you go into Judge Caprio's courtroom, you leave with your dignity. And I think that is so important, and it sets an example and it reverberates.
When I have someone before me who has a compelling story, I try to look at the world through their eyes to see what they're thinking, what their hardship is. And I take all of those factors into consideration in the disposition of my cases.
But you grew up too. You didn't grow up of a man of great means. Your family came over, right? Can we talk a little bit about your family history?
First of all, I'd like to mention that I had a very privileged childhood. I had the privilege of growing up poor. I had the privilege of living in a cold water flat, which meant that we didn't have hot running water. I had the privilege of having a loving mother and a loving father, and of having hardship throughout my early life. And it was those circumstances that gave rise to my temperament today. I remember my father telling me, always treat people with dignity and respect. Never forget where you came from. Right. He encouraged me to go into law. He says, I want you to be a lawyer. I want you to be a lawyer. But remember one thing, you can't charge poor people.
Wow.
And my mother, who, if she saw someone on the street that was hungry, she'd feed them, But it's these qualities, these human qualities that I was exposed to throughout my early childhood.
Because you understood that point of view. It's not like you had to conjure it up. It's how you grew up and were raised to understand what the common person was going through.
Well, it isn't something that I talk about because I read it in a book. I lived it.
Right, right. And that makes a huge difference. And you take those experiences with you.
But I just want to, before I forget, it's just using those lessons that have resulted in a number of views for court in Providence. And the number of views worldwide are now over 2 billion.
Wow.
And we're headed quickly toward 3 billion views worldwide.
Are there days that, do you have particular folks that have come in that you just will never forget?
I do. One is a very humorous story. At a point in time when they were prosecuting panhandlers, there was one panhandler who kept coming in, and it called for a 20-day sentence at ACI. I didn't want to send anyone to jail for panhandling, but this one individual came in. He came in 10 times, and I said, you can't come back anymore, and I let him go. And finally, I got to the point where I said, if you come back once more, I said, you are going to end up doing life in jail, 10 days at a time. I said, please don't come back anymore. So I didn't see him for a year. And I'm walking by City Hall one day, and I hear someone yelling, Judge Caprio, and it's him. Uh-huh. So how are you? How you doing? He said, I want to thank you so much I said, good. I said, you're not panhandling anymore? He said, no, no, no. He said, well, you threatened to send me to jail. He says, now I panhandle outside South Station in Boston. I'm making 3 times as much.
That's great.
But I had people coming in with hardship. You know, I recently had a young man who came in who was autistic with his mom. And he was standing next to his mom, and his mom was telling me her story. And I said, why don't you have your son talk, you know? And she was a little nervous. And so I started talking to him, and all of a sudden he opened up. And he said some wonderful things. He says, you know, I have autism, but I want to be treated like everybody else. I just want to be as normal as everybody else. I have things to contribute in life. And it just was a very moving story. And it went viral. I mean, he was getting 1 million hits a day as of last week, you know.
Wow.
And the mom told me after that in an interview, she said that it was the first time that he was able to express himself and open up, that somehow or other we were able to connect with him.
I think you make people feel very comfortable. And as I said, people come in, when they leave with their dignity. But I think you give them confidence. And the other thing I noticed that you do, and I've seen it on a personal level, you can see a young person and you say the right thing to them. Sometimes there's so much power in words of encouragement.
Let me address that. You know, those who watch Court in Providence know that when youngsters come in, you know, many times I will invite the youngsters to come up on the bench and sit with me. Now, a courtroom experience, Steve, can be very, very intimidating.
Right.
You know, there's an oak paneled courtroom. There's 2 police officers with guns. There's a judge in a robe. There are 2 flags behind the judge. Even for adults, that's a very intimidating experience. Now, I often think, how would a youngster feel if he came to court and I berated his mother or his father and yelled at them and told them, what kind of an example are you setting for this kid? You know, and just read the riot act to them and then fined them to teach them a lesson, right, and then sent them out of the courtroom. That youngster would leave the courtroom hating the systems of government, hating the judicial system, loving his mother more. You know, it just could cause so many problems. You never know how it would manifest itself in future years. Now, if the mother has no money and she can't pay the ticket, I can find her anything, right? They can't pay. And
It's more stress.
and they'll tow the car, and after they tow the car will be auctioned off, so it just will cause so many more problems
Right.
in life. But by bringing the youngster up on the bench, they're never the same toward their feelings toward the institutions of government after that. The resources and the power of the sovereign are like this. Of the individual, the resources and their power is like this. And for me to flaunt that, and to misuse that, and to abuse that, you know, I should be impeached if I do
Right.
that.
Oh, it's like that saying, great power comes great responsibility.
Right.
And I also think that when, like a young child who sees that a judge is looking out for their interests, it just makes you feel like this is what the institution is supposed, that Solomon-esque feeling.
And the first time that they may be exposed to a government experience is before my court. I'm very sensitive to that. I'm very, very, I'm not dealing now with a homicide. I'm not dealing with an assault on someone's body. If that were the case, I'd feel differently. But I'm dealing now with traffic violations, you know, and that can have a terrible impact. Let me give you an example. Okay, take a mother of 4, right, who doesn't speak English, but she has a license and she has a car, right, and she's a single parent. And she has $500 worth of parking tickets, right? She comes into court, and her car has been booted. She don't even have the money to get the boot off the car. She has no money. So I can read the riot act. She's there with 3 of her kids saying, we're going to teach you a lesson, right? But this is never going to happen again. I'm not releasing that boot until you pay the $100 and the $500 fine. You know what happens? The car gets towed. After 30 days, right, the car gets auctioned off by the city. Right? Now she has no car, right? And she's got 4 kids. So a couple of things are going to happen. She's going to find a way to get another car that will be uninsured, and she'll have no license, and the car won't be registered, right? Or something bad. Nothing good is going to happen.
Nothing good.
Nothing good is going to, and the city's not going to get its money anyway. So I try to work on a long payment plan. I reduce the fine, right? I tell her I understand. Give her the speech. We'll try to help you, help yourself, you know. So, and I find people, Stephen, they say thank you
Right.
because they believe that they've been treated fairly, being treated fairly.
Justly. Justly. Just, you know. Well, I want to thank you for being here today, for being the person you are, for being a great judge, not only for the city of Providence, but the entire state of Rhode Island. And I am so happy that your positive energy resonates across the world. And I'm very grateful you're here, and you're a great friend, and we love you.
It's been a great pleasure to be here. You keep up your job. You're a treasure for the state of Rhode Island, Steve. Thank you so much.
Thank you.